The first gold coin fell from the bridal bouquet at 11 that night. Camila Reyes heard it strike the floor of her flower shop. She looked down. The coin rolled beneath a work table and stopped beside her shoe. It was heavy, old, and stamped with a crowned lion. Camila picked it up carefully. She had arranged thousands of bouquets, but none had ever carried hidden gold. At 29, Camila owned a small flower shop in Little Italy. She was curvy, stylish, and known for turning ordinary roses into arrangements wealthy brides fought over. Tonight's bouquet belonged to Valentina Moretti. The bride was marrying Dante Romano in less than 12 hours. Dante was not simply wealthy. He controlled restaurants, shipping companies, and several men who never introduced themselves twice. Camila placed the coin on the table. Then she examined the bouquet. The white roses had been delivered that afternoon from an unfamiliar supplier. Someone had replaced the ribbon after she finished the arrangement. A second object was hidden beneath the stems. Camila cut through the satin. A narrow piece of leather slipped free. It was not decorative. It was a map. Faded ink showed the coastline south of Brooklyn, 3 abandoned tunnels, and a black circle beneath an old church. Across the bottom, someone had written, "The Romano treasure was never lost. It was stolen." A bell rang above the front door. Camila folded the map and hid it beneath her apron. A tall man entered, wearing a black suit and a rain-darkened overcoat. Dante Romano. His hair was neatly combed, his face controlled, and his eyes carried the cold focus of a man accustomed to immediate answers. 2 men waited outside. Camila looked at the clock. "My shop closed an hour ago." Dante placed a photograph on the counter. It showed the bridal bouquet inside his fiancée's hotel room. The roses had been torn apart. "My fiancé disappeared 20 minutes ago." Camila stared at the photograph. "Call the police." "I did." That surprised her. Dante noticed. "I want her found alive. Pride can wait." Camila looked at the damaged bouquet. "What does this have to do with me?" "The hotel camera shows someone entering her room wearing your uniform." Camila's pulse quickened. "I have 3 employees. All of them went home before 8. The woman in the video had your face." Silence settled between them. Camila almost laughed. "That is impossible." Dante slid a phone across the counter. The screen showed security footage. A woman walked through the hotel hallway carrying roses. Same dark curls. Same green apron. Same body. Camila watched the woman turn toward the camera. Her own face looked back. Dante studied her reaction. "You understand why I came. Someone disguised herself as me. Or you are pretending not to remember." Camila's anger rose. "Leave my shop." Dante's gaze shifted toward the gold coin on the table. His expression changed instantly. "Where did you get that?" Camila covered it with her hand. "Why?" He stepped closer. "That coin belonged to my grandfather." A vehicle stopped outside. Then another. Not Dante's. Headlights filled the flower shop windows. Camila looked through the glass. Men in grey coats surrounded the building. Dante moved beside her. "Do you know them?" "No." One of the men raised a photograph against the window. It showed Valentina tied to a chair. A message was written beneath it. "Bring the map before midnight. Come without Dante." Dante read the note. Then he looked at Camila's apron. "You found something inside the bouquet." Before she could answer, the shop lights went out. A woman's voice came through the locked door. "Give us the map, Camila." Camila recognized the voice. It belonged to Valentina Moretti, the missing bride. Camila stared through the darkened glass. Valentina stood outside beneath the streetlight. Her wedding dress was gone. She wore black trousers, a grey coat, and no visible restraints. The photograph had been staged. Dante moved toward the door. Camila caught his sleeve. "Wait." He looked at her hand, then at her. "You heard her. I also saw men surrounding my shop." Valentina knocked once. "Camila, open the door." Dante's voice hardened. "Why are you doing this?" Valentina smiled through the glass. "Because your grandfather stole something that never belonged to him." Camila looked at Dante. "The treasure?" His jaw tightened. "My family searched for it for 40 years. Then maybe your family searched in the wrong places. Another man stepped into view beside Valentina. Older, silver hair, scar across his chin. Dante's expression changed. Marco Moretti. Valentina's father. He had supposedly died 5 years earlier in a boating accident. Marco lifted one hand. The men in grey coats raised their weapons. Camila stepped away from the window. You planned your own kidnapping. Valentina answered through the door. I planned my escape. From your wedding. From Dante. Dante went still. Camila studied him. He looked angry, but not surprised enough. You knew she wanted to leave. Camila said. I knew she was afraid. Of you? Of what our marriage would unite? Valentina struck the glass with her palm. Stop protecting him, Camila. I am protecting my shop. The emergency lights flickered on. Red bulbs illuminated the roses, the overturned vases, and the map hidden beneath Camila's apron. Dante lowered his voice. Give me the map. No. Those men will tear this building apart. And you won't? His silence answered. Camila stepped behind the counter and opened a drawer. Inside was a small brass key her grandmother had given her years ago. A crowned lion was engraved on its head, the same symbol stamped on the coin. Dante saw it. Where did you get that? My grandmother called it a family charm. Marco's voice came through the door. It is not a charm. Camila looked toward him. It opens the first tunnel. The room seemed to shrink around her. My family has nothing to do with yours. Marco smiled sadly. Your family drew the map. Camila looked down at the leather. The handwriting along the coast suddenly felt familiar, not because she had seen it before, because it matched the labels inside her grandmother's old gardening books. Dante noticed her reaction. You recognize it? Camila unfolded the map beneath the emergency light. A name had been written along the bottom edge. Isabel Reyes, her grandmother. Valentina spoke again. Isabel hid the treasure after the Romanos killed her husband. Camila's fingers tightened around the map. My grandfather died of pneumonia. No, Marco said. He died protecting the entrance. Dante stepped closer to Camila. My family did not kill him. You don't know that? No, but I know who might. A crash sounded from the back room. Glass shattered. Someone had entered through the loading door. Dante pulled Camila behind the counter as footsteps crossed the flower storage room. Marco shouted from outside. That is not one of mine. A masked figure emerged between the hanging vines. He carried a small crossbow. The bolt struck the bouquet on the table. White roses exploded across the floor. Attached to the bolt was a strip of paper. Dante ripped it free. Only one sentence was written across it. The bride is lying. The real Valentina is beneath the church. The masked intruder lowered the crossbow. Dante moved in front of Camila. Take off the mask. The figure did not move. Outside, Marco Moretti shouted through the door. Do not trust him. Camila looked toward Valentina. The woman outside still wore the bride's face. But now Camila noticed something wrong. Valentina always tilted her head when nervous. This woman did not. She stood too still, too rehearsed. Camila turned toward the masked intruder. Who are you? The figure slowly removed the mask. Another Valentina looked back at them. Same dark eyes, same mouth, same scar near the eyebrow. But this woman was bruised, exhausted, and wearing a torn hotel robe beneath a stolen coat. Dante went pale. Valentina, the real bride, looked through the glass at the woman outside. That is not me. The false Valentina smiled. Then she raised a gun. Dante pulled Camila down as bullets struck the front windows. Glass exploded across the flower shop. The real Valentina fired one crossbow bolt toward the streetlight. The bulb shattered. Darkness covered the entrance. Marco's men scattered. Camila crawled behind the counter. You brought a crossbow to your own rescue. Valentina reloaded. It was all I could find in the church archive. Dante crouched beside them. Start explaining. Valentina looked at him. My father has been dead for 5 years. Camila glanced toward Marco outside. Then who is that? My uncle, Adrian Moretti. The man outside heard her through the broken window. His expression hardened. Dante looked at Camila. The Moretti brothers were identical twins. Camila started. So Adrian stole Marco's identity, and he found someone willing to steal mine, Valentina said. The false bride stepped behind one of the grey SUVs. Then she called into the shop, "Give us the map," and the real bride walks away. Valentina laughed bitterly. "You already tried to bury me." Camila turned toward her. "The note said you were beneath the church." "I was." She touched the bruise on her temple. "They locked me in a service room after replacing me at the hotel." Dante's voice became quiet. "Why?" "Because Adrian needed the wedding to happen. To unite the families." "No." Valentina looked at Camila. "To gain access to her." Camila felt the brass key inside her palm. "Me? Your grandmother built the floral tunnel." Camila frowned. "The map shows old subway lines." "They are not subway lines." Valentina pointed toward the leather map. "They are irrigation tunnels beneath the old cathedral gardens." Camila unfolded it again. The paths twisted like roots beneath the city. Dante leaned closer. "Where does the main tunnel end?" Camila traced the black circle beneath the church. "At the crypt." Valentina shook her head. "Below the crypt." A sudden crash came from the rear storage room. Someone had entered again. Dante's men were still outside. Camila heard flower buckets overturn. Then a woman stepped through the hanging vines. She wore Camila's green apron. Her face was identical to Camila's. Same curls, same body, same terrified expression. The woman held a gold coin between two fingers. She looked directly at Camila. "You should have stayed away from the bouquet." Camila stared at her own face. The woman smiled. Then she turned to Dante. "Which one of us do you trust?" Dante looked from Camila to the woman in the green apron. Neither of them moved. The copy smiled first. "That hesitation must hurt." Camila stepped forward. "It does not." The woman lifted the gold coin. "Then tell him where you found this." Camila stayed silent. Dante noticed. The copy walked closer. "She found it inside the bridal bouquet." "I already know that," Dante said. The woman's smile faded. Camila looked at her carefully. Same face, same curls, but the hands were wrong. No small burns from floral wire, no green stains from cut stems. Camila pointed. "You are not a florist." The woman glanced at her hands. "A mistake." Camila moved fast. She grabbed a bucket of water and threw it. The woman turned away. A thin edge of skin lifted near her jaw. A mask. Dante crossed the room before she recovered. He caught her wrist and forced the gun onto the floor. The real Valentina kicked it beneath the counter. Camila grabbed the mask near the ear and pulled. Another face appeared beneath it. Pale, sharp, familiar. Valentina stopped. "Lucia." Dante looked at her. "Your cousin?" Valentina nodded slowly. Lucia Moretti had managed the wedding guest list. She had visited Camila's shop 3 times, always asking too many questions. Lucia wiped water from her face. "You ruined everything." Camila held the mask in one hand. "You copied me. I studied you. That is worse." Dante forced Lucia against the work table. "Where is Adrian going?" Lucia laughed. "You still think he wants the treasure. What does he want?" "The names." Camila looked at the leather map. "There are names on it." "Not on the surface." Lucia nodded toward the gold coin. "The coin opens the second layer." Camila placed it over the crowned lion stamped near the coastline. It fit perfectly. She twisted it. A hidden flap opened inside the leather. 12 names appeared beneath the map. One was Romano. One was Moretti. The final name was Reyes. Camila's stomach tightened. Valentina leaned closer. "These are the families who helped hide the treasure." Lucia laughed again. "No." She looked directly at Camila. "They are the families who stole it." A loud engine roared outside. Grey SUVs began pulling away. Adrian was leaving. Dante grabbed the map. Camila snatched it back. "It belongs to my family. It may lead to mine. Then follow me." He stared at her. Camila folded the map and placed it inside her coat. "I know the cathedral gardens better than you do." Valentina reloaded the crossbow. And I know the crypt. Dante released Lucia to his men. Then the church bells began ringing across the neighborhood. Midnight. Lucia's expression changed. Not fear. Relief, Camila noticed. What happens at midnight? Lucia looked toward the dark street. The irrigation gates open. Valentina went pale. The tunnels flood. Dante looked at the map. How long do we have? Lucia smiled. Long enough to choose one person. Camila stepped closer. What does that mean? The main tunnel divides beneath the church. Lucia's eyes moved between Camila and Valentina. One path leads to the treasure. The bells rang again. The other leads to the person Adrian buried alive. The bells rang a third time. Water began rushing beneath the street. Camila felt it through the floor before she heard it. A deep, mechanical rumble moved toward the cathedral. Lucia smiled. The gates are open. Dante turned to his men. Secure the shop. Hold Lucia. Camila grabbed his arm. No. He looked at her. You are not staying here. That is not what I meant. She pointed toward the map. We cannot waste time arguing about control. Dante went still. Then he nodded. Lead. They crossed the street toward the cathedral gardens. Rain had softened the soil around the old stone paths. Camila found the fountain marked on her grandmother's map and knelt beside its base. A crowned lion had been carved beneath the moss. She pressed the brass key into the center. Stone shifted. A narrow stairway opened beneath the fountain. Cold air rushed upward. Valentina checked the crossbow. Dante looked at it. You are not bringing that. I was buried alive tonight. He considered that. Bring it. They descended together. The tunnel walls were covered with roots and faded floral symbols. Water already streamed around their shoes. Camila traced the map beneath her flashlight. Main path ahead, then the split. Lucia's warning followed them into the darkness. One path to the treasure, one path to the buried prisoner. At the split, 2 iron gates waited. The left bore a crowned lion. The right bore a white rose. Valentina stepped toward the rose. That symbol was in the room where they kept me. Dante looked toward the lion. The treasure is that way. Camila studied both gates. Water climbed above her ankles. We choose the person. Dante looked at her. No hesitation. No argument. Valentina stared at him. You would leave the treasure. It has survived 40 years. He looked toward the rose gate. A person may not survive 10 minutes. Camila inserted the brass key. It did not fit. Valentina searched the gate. There is no lock. Camila placed her palm against the rose. The metal felt warm. Then she saw a narrow gap beneath the petals. She removed the gold coin and slid it inside. The gate opened. A louder rush of water came from the passage beyond. They ran. At the end of the tunnel, they found a stone chamber nearly filled to the ceiling. A wooden coffin floated against the far wall. Someone was pounding from inside. Camila entered the water. Dante caught her waist. It is too deep. She is running out of air. Together, they crossed the chamber. Valentina held the flashlight above the water while Dante forced the lid open. A woman gasped inside. She was older, soaked, and wearing a torn ivory dress. Camila recognized her face from an old photograph in her grandmother's bedroom. Abuela? The woman stared at her. No. Camila froze. The woman gripped her wrist. Isabel Reyes was my sister. Her eyes filled with fear. And Adrian did not bury me to hide the treasure. Dante looked at her. Then why? She pointed toward the tunnel behind them. Because your bride's real father is alive. Valentina went pale. The woman's next words echoed through the flooded chamber. And he is waiting inside the treasure vault. Camila stared at the older woman. My grandmother had a sister. The woman nodded. My name is Teresa Reyes. Valentina stepped closer. You said my father is alive. Teresa looked toward the lion-marked tunnel. Marco Moretti never died in the boating accident. Valentina's face tightened. Adrian said he watched the boat sink. Adrian arranged it. Water pushed against their legs. Dante looked toward the chamber entrance. We cannot stay here. Camila helped Teresa out of the coffin. Why was she buried alive? Teresa's hand closed around Camila's wrist. Because I know where Marco hid the original ledger. Valentina shook her head. This is about more than treasure. It was always about more than treasure. Teresa pulled a small silver tube from beneath her torn dress. Inside was a strip of translucent paper covered with names and numbers. Dante recognized it immediately. Bank codes. Not only banks, Teresa said. Judges, port officials, police commanders. Camila looked at the 12 family names hidden beneath the map. They funded the network. Teresa nodded. Your grandmother tried to dismantle it. A violent tremor moved through the tunnel. Stone cracked above them. Valentina looked at the rising water. We go, now. They returned to the split. The white rose gate had nearly disappeared beneath the current. The crowned lion gate remained closed. Camila pressed the gold coin against the center. Nothing happened. Dante examined the hinges. No lock. Teresa looked at the brass key. The coin opens the prison. The key opens the inheritance, Camila said. She inserted it beneath the lion's crown. A hidden mechanism turned. The gate opened. Dry air rushed from the passage beyond. That frightened Camila more than the water. Someone had kept the vault sealed and maintained. They entered carefully. Electric lights flickered along the stone walls. The tunnel ended inside a circular chamber lined with gold bars, sealed paintings, antique jewelry, and crates marked with foreign ports. At the center stood a man in a dark suit. He looked older than Valentina remembered, but not weak. A scar crossed his forehead. Valentina stopped. Dad, Marco Moretti turned. His eyes filled with shock, then fear. You should not be here. Valentina moved toward him. You let me believe you were dead. I did it to keep you alive. She slapped him. The sound echoed through the vault. Marco accepted it without moving. Then he looked at Dante. Adrian is using the wedding to transfer control of the Romano ports. Dante's expression hardened. How? The marriage contract includes a hidden corporate merger. Valentina stared at him. You knew about the contract? I knew there was one. You planned to marry me without reading it. I trusted my legal team. Marco gave a bitter laugh. Your legal team belongs to Adrian. Camila looked around the vault. Where is he now? Marco pointed toward a steel control panel beside the far wall. He does not need to be here. A green light began blinking. Then every lock inside the chamber clicked at once. Teresa went pale. The sealing cycle. Dante crossed to the panel. The screen showed 30 seconds. Marco looked at Camila's map. He needs the final family signature before the vault closes. Camila frowned. What signature? Marco pointed toward the hidden name at the bottom. Reyes. The treasure cannot legally transfer without your bloodline. A needle rose from the control panel. Camila stepped back. The speaker above them crackled. Adrian's voice filled the vault. Place your hand on the plate, Camila. The timer dropped to 20 seconds. Or everyone inside suffocates with the treasure. The timer dropped to 18 seconds. Camila stared at the needle above the metal plate. Bloodline authorization, Marco said. That is how Isabel protected the vault. Dante looked at him. Protected it from whom? From anyone who tried to transfer the assets without a Reyes witness. Adrian's voice came through the speaker. 10 seconds, Camila. Valentina stepped toward the panel. I will do it. Teresa caught her arm. It will not accept Moretti blood. Camila studied the plate. Her grandmother had designed this, not Adrian. That meant there had to be another purpose, another choice. She looked at the map. The hidden names were arranged in a circle around the crowned lion. 12 families, not one owner. Camila pressed the map against the control panel. The leather fit perfectly over the metal surface. The timer paused at 6 seconds. Dante looked at her. What did you do? I gave it the full list. Marco moved closer. The system still needs a witness. Camila saw 12 small marks appear beneath the leather, one beside every family name. Only the Reyes mark was dark. She understood. This was never a signature for ownership. Teresa looked at the panel. It is consent. Camila nodded. All 12 families were supposed to approve any transfer. Adrian's voice sharpened. Put your hand on the plate. No. The timer resumed. 5 seconds. Dante reached for the panel. Camila stopped him. Wait. 4, 3. She removed the brass key and inserted it into the Reyes mark on the map. 2. Then she turned it backward. The timer vanished. A new message appeared on the screen. Transfer rejected. Public release authorized. Marco went pale. Isabel built a disclosure system. Every light inside the vault turned red. Hidden drawers opened along the walls. Printers began feeding out copies of deeds, account lists, and contracts. Dante looked toward the ceiling. Where is it sending them? Teresa almost smiled. Everywhere Isabel planned. The speaker exploded with Adrian's voice. Stop it! Camila stepped closer to the microphone. You needed my bloodline. No, Adrian said. I needed your obedience. The lights went out. A second later, emergency lamps came on. One of the steel walls began moving, not closing, opening. Behind it was a narrow control room. Adrian stood inside. No army. No hidden guards. Only a computer console and a gun in his hand. Valentina stared at him. You were here the entire time. Adrian aimed at Camila. Marco moved in front of his daughter. Dante moved in front of Camila. Adrian laughed. Every man in this family thinks protection means standing between a woman and danger. Camila looked at the floor. A floral symbol was carved beneath Adrian's feet, the same symbol used on old greenhouse irrigation valves. She followed the groove toward the wall. Then she saw the brass wheel beside Teresa. Turn that, Camila said. Teresa did not hesitate. She pulled the wheel hard. A steel grate dropped between Adrian and the vault. His gunshot struck the bars. Dante rushed forward, but Camila stopped him. Look down. Water burst through the control room floor. Adrian slipped and hit the console. The gun fell through the grate. Marco grabbed it. Adrian struggled to stand as the water rose around him. Then the computer screen behind him changed. A live video feed appeared. Lucia stood inside Camila's flower shop. She held a match above a trail of gasoline, and she was smiling. End the release, Lucia said through the screen, or the shop burns with everyone inside. Lucia held the match above the gasoline. Behind her, Camila's flower shop stood dark and empty. At least, it looked empty. Camila studied the screen. The front windows are boarded from inside. Dante looked at her. So she expects someone to enter from the street. Valentina understood first. It is another trap. Lucia smiled through the camera. End the release. Camila looked at the control panel. Documents continued printing. Account records were already transmitting beyond the vault. Can it be stopped? Dante asked. Marco shook his head. Not once public release begins. Adrian slammed both hands against the steel grate. Then she burns the shop. Camila turned toward him. Your people are still inside, aren't they? His silence answered. Lucia had not trapped innocent employees. She had trapped Adrian's own men. Camila stepped toward the microphone. Lucia. Open the rear door. Her smile faded. What? The gasoline line ends near the flower cooler. If you light it, the pressure blast reaches the back room first. Lucia looked over her shoulder. A man moved behind the curtain. Fear crossed his face. Camila continued. You were told the fire would destroy evidence. Lucia's hand lowered slightly. It will. No. The evidence is already public. Dante leaned toward the microphone. Adrian sent you there to die. Lucia looked at the camera. Then, at Adrian's image, on the vault monitor. You promised an exit. Adrian shouted through the grate. Light it. Lucia's expression changed. Not loyalty. Recognition. She dropped the match into a metal sink and turned on the faucet. Police lights flooded the shop windows seconds later. Camila had activated the silent alarm before leaving. Lucia surrendered. So did the men hiding in the storage room. Inside the vault, Adrian stopped fighting. Federal agents entered through the cathedral tunnel within the hour. The public release exposed the false merger, the stolen properties, and every official paid through the network. Marco testified. Teresa gave investigators Isabel's original records. Valentina cancelled the wedding. Not because she hated Dante, because neither of them had chosen it freely. Dante accepted that without argument. The treasure was placed in a restitution trust for the 12 families. Camila refused a private share. She accepted only what could be proven stolen from the Reyes family. 6 months later, she reopened her flower shop. The rebuilt front window faced the cathedral gardens. Dante arrived, carrying one white rose. No guards entered with him. No bouquet? Camila asked. I thought one honest flower was safer. She almost smiled. He placed Isabel's restored brass key on the counter. It belongs to you. Camila closed her hand around it. And the Romano Empire? Smaller. Good. Legal. Better. He waited. No demand. No promise he had not earned. Camila placed the white rose in a glass vase. Then she poured 2 cups of coffee. The treasure had brought them together through lies, fear, and inheritance. But what remained between them would have to be built without any of those things. For Camila, that was finally worth more than gold.